Steve, I became first aware of your work when I was writing Leadership in Focus, and I was very impressed with how you introduced Satya Nadella as the CEO to the world.
Satya, let me start by asking you, who is Satya Nadella? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
It was a simple, straightforward video. Could you talk about the thinking that was behind that?
So that was a little over 6 years ago that we shot that video, and it was shot in a building inside of Microsoft on, if I remember correctly, a Sunday afternoon, and I think we announced Satya as the CEO the Tuesday after that. And I had found out a few days earlier that he was going to become CEO, and along with my team, we'd been asked to think about, hey, how should we sort of announce Satya to the world? And traditionally, the way that you do that type of thing is you write up a press release and you send it to the media, and then you answer phone calls. And we had decided that we'd built this storytelling capability inside of the company over the few years before that, and said, maybe we can tell this story in a bit more of a richer way than I think traditionally people would. And so we had decided we wanted to build a website. And in fact, on that morning, we went live at a website that was at the time Microsoft.com/CEO. And that contained a set of photography, a sort of rich profile that we'd written of Satya and his background and, where he'd grown up and his interests. And then we also wanted video on that because obviously video is an important asset. And we ended up with 4 videos, one of Bill Gates, one of Steve Ballmer, one of John Thompson, who's our chairman. And then there was this question around, hey, we want a video of Satya. And so a small group of us in communications were talking about what might that video look like, how would we shoot that video, given we needed to shoot it in advance but still keep this information confidential. And we had talked about, I think there was a general consensus in the group that we would have this one-on-one discussion with Satya. And I think that, again, typically the way that you would do that is you'd sit 2 people down in chairs and you'd have what I thought would be a relatively traditional and relatively traditional conversation. And I said, this, if we're going to do things non-traditionally, then let's do this interview non-traditionally, and let's do it as a walk and talk. And then we sort of struggled with, well, where are we going to do that? Because we can't really walk outside, because if we see somebody walking along with a camera crew and interviewing Satya, there was already speculation that he may be CEO. We thought that's going to, share the news too quickly. And so we picked this Sunday afternoon, a building on our campus that I was very familiar with, where I knew that there was a distance in this building that would create a good interview time for, five-ish questions. And so I pitched this idea to the team and said, let's do a walk and talk interview with Satya from one end of this building to the other, finish in this particular part of the building that I knew that was this scenic kind of spot. And that idea was accepted. And then somebody said, well, who should do the interview? And I said, I have no idea who should do the interview. And they looked at me and said, you should do the interview. And so I sort of ended up somewhat picking myself to do that interview. And then I had just decided that, let's keep it really simple. And I had 5 questions in my head that wanted to get at, who was the person, which is really where I started. And then what were his ambitions for Microsoft?
And as you step into this role, what do you see as your primary focus? What are you going to be really focused on?
I would say first thing.
And then when people saw the outcome of this, the walk and talk conversation, they're very happy with it, including Satya, who thought it was, the right choice. So
your questions weren't what I would even consider the traditional questions. They were really about humanizing him. And so was that something the team discussed?
We did discuss it. There were really 3 of us who were sort of making these decisions, and we were keen to make it authentic, and so to ask questions around what do you think are the barriers, and Satya talked about that, the barriers to success. I thought it was important for people to know who Satya was, his background, a little about his family, how long he'd been at the company. So it was definitely intentional to be more human and to humanize him.
In my work with CEOs, usually it's a difficult thing to persuade them to try things that are new Was that a consideration?
It was not difficult with Satya. He was very open, and I think he innately understands the power of storytelling. He's, in my opinion, a fantastic communicator. And so it really wasn't difficult to convince him. But I've spoken with lots of other communications teams and, CMOs and CEOs afterwards who are trying to do similar things. And I don't underestimate that, not everybody has as willing a subject as we had with Satya.